Hi, my loves. Welcome in. My name is Lindsay, and you're here on Lindsay Speaks. Let me just settle into this for a second. Okay, the very first thing that comes through is this really calm but heavy energy. Not heavy in a bad way, more like depth. Like you carry a lot, but you don't complain about it. You don't make noise about it. You've always been the type to just handle things quietly. You're not someone who walks into a room trying to be seen. You don't announce yourself. You don't explain yourself over and over. You've always had this I'll stay in my lane kind of energy. And because of that, people missed you. They really did. Not because you weren't special, but because you didn't demand attention. And I keep getting this sense that for a long time you were underestimated. People thought you were just nice, just quiet, just gentle. They didn't realize how much strength was sitting underneath that. It's like a deep ocean thing, calm surface, powerful underneath. People only see waves once something shifts. I'm picking up on the feeling that you were the one who showed up for others when they were at their lowest. When someone felt completely alone, completely overwhelmed, completely done, you were there. And you didn't show up with big speeches or advice. You showed up by being present, by listening, by staying. There's an image coming to me of someone sitting in a dark room, everything feels heavy, and then someone quietly opens the door and just sits on the floor with them. No fixing, no rushing, just being there. That's you. And you might not even realize how rare that is. I feel like you stepped into someone's life at a moment when they were barely holding themselves together. They didn't tell everyone how bad it was. They didn't even fully understand it themselves. But something about you made them feel less alone. Like for the first time, they didn't have to carry everything by themselves. And here's the part that really matters. You didn't know you were changing anything. You weren't trying to be important. You weren't trying to be a hero. You were just being you. And that's exactly why this hits so deep. There's this energy now of people looking back and realizing, wait, they were always there. Like hindsight finally kicked in. Like now they see how much you actually mattered. I keep getting this phrase floating around. I didn't see that coming. And it's not regret exactly, it's surprise, shock, realization. You were never invisible, you were just quiet. I also get the sense that you learned early on not to take up too much space. Maybe you were taught to be the strong one, the understanding one, the one who doesn't ask for much. And because of that, you got really good at holding space for others, but not always for yourself. This reading feels like it's gently reminding you that what you gave wasn't small, what you offered wasn't basic. Your presence changed something in a way that can't be undone. And now things are shifting. People are starting to notice the energy around you feels different. There's more respect, more curiosity, almost like people are finally catching up to who you've been this whole time. If this is hitting, I want you to pause for a second and really let that land. You didn't imagine it, like you weren't too sensitive, you weren't just there. You mattered. If this resonates, drop quiet but powerful in the comments. Hit the like button, subscribe, and stay right here with me. Because this part goes a little deeper. What's coming through now is that you didn't enter their life when things were easy. This wasn't a light, fun chapter for them. This was one of those moments where someone is just surviving day by day. Smiling on the outside, but inside everything feels shaky, like they're holding themselves together with tape and hope. And you walked in right there, not when they were healed, not when they had it all figured out, but when they were tired, worn down, emotionally drained. You didn't come in trying to fix anything on that's important. You didn't show up with answers or plans or speeches about how things will get better. You weren't trying to rescue them or change who they were. You didn't push, you didn't force, you didn't overwhelm, you stayed. And that sounds simple, but it's not. Because staying with someone who is hurting takes patience, it takes emotional strength, it takes being okay with silence, with slow days, with moments where there's nothing you can do except sit there and let them feel what they're feeling. This person had been carrying so much on their own, a lot of emotional weight, a lot of unspoken pain, the kind of pain that doesn't always come from one big thing, but from years of feeling unseen, unsupported, misunderstood, always being the one to cope, always being the one to handle it. They were exhausted. And you came in like a quiet anchor, like a steady ground under their feet. Not dramatic, not flashy, just solid, consistent, safe. I keep getting this image of someone who's been treading water for a long time, arms burning, chest tight, and then suddenly there's something solid beneath them. They can finally stand, they can finally rest. That's what your presence felt like to them. For the first time in a long time, they didn't feel like they had to explain themselves. They didn't have to perform. They didn't have to be okay. Around you, they could just exist. And that's when things started to change. They may not have said it out loud at the time. They might not have even realized it right away. But something inside them softened, something unclenched. Their nervous system finally relaxed. Their heart didn't feel like it was constantly bracing for the next hit. You gave them a sense of safety without even trying to. And what really stands out here is that you probably underestimated your role in all of this. You may have thought, I didn't do much, or anyone would have done the same. But that's not true. Not everyone knows how to sit with pain without running from it. Not everyone knows how to be gentle without being weak. You do. And because of that, you became the person they trusted the most, the one they leaned on, the one who made the world feel a little less harsh, a little less lonely. They didn't feel alone anymore, and once that shifted, everything else started to shift too. Because after that moment, after you showed up, after you stayed, people started seeing you differently. Not because you changed who you are, but because who you are could no longer stay hidden. There's a very strong sense here that you've always lived a little inward, like your real world has always been inside you. You think deeply, you notice things other people miss, you feel everything, but you don't always show it. You've never been the type to put yourself on display. You watch first, you listen first, you feel people out before letting them in. And for a long time, that made others underestimate you. They saw quiet and assume passive. They saw calm and assume weak. They saw kindness and assumed you wouldn't stand your ground. But they were wrong. You weren't hiding because you were afraid. You were protecting yourself. You were conserving your energy. You were being selective. You've always known that not everyone deserves access to your inner world. I keep getting this image of a locked room with the lights on inside. From the outside, it looks empty, plain, uninteresting. But inside, there's depth, thought, feeling, strength. It was never empty. It just wasn't open to everyone. And then something happened. Someone got close enough to actually see you. And once one person saw it, it couldn't be unseen. And now there's this ripple effect. People around you are starting to realize that you're not just anything. You're not just quiet, not just nice, not just supportive. There's substance here. There's backbone. There's a calm power that doesn't need to announce itself. That's why the shock is real. And it's that moment when people mentally replay interactions with you and think, wait, how did I miss that? They're connecting dots. They're realizing that you were always more than they assumed. You just didn't feel the need to prove it. And the thing is, you're still the same person. You haven't suddenly become louder or more aggressive. You haven't changed your nature. What's changed is that your presence is being felt more strongly now. Your energy is taking up space without you trying. There's a quiet confidence settling into you, not the kind that needs validation, the kind that comes from knowing yourself, from understanding your limits, your values, your worth. You're still observant, still introverted, still selective, but now people can feel you and they don't quite know what to do with that yet because the way you show up doesn't fit into the boxes people are used to. You don't overwhelm. You don't demand, you don't pull or push. You have this steady, grounded presence that doesn't rush anything. And for this person, that was everything. With you, they felt something they hadn't felt in a very long time. Safety, real safety, not the kind that comes from promises or words, but the kind that's felt in the body. I keep getting this sense of their shoulders finally dropping, their breath slowing down, like their system finally realized, okay, I don't have to stay on high alert here. You weren't chaotic energy in their life. You weren't unpredictable. You didn't come with emotional whiplash. You were consistent, calm, solid. And that steadiness gave them permission to rest. This person had been living in survival mode for a long time, always bracing, always expecting something to go wrong, always ready to protect themselves. Even when nothing was happening, their body was still tense, their mind was always racing. And then there was you. You didn't make them feel like they had to earn your presence. You didn't make them feel like they had to explain their feelings or justify their reactions. Around you, they could just exist. No performance, no mask. It's like being in a noisy room for years and then suddenly stepping into silence. At first, it feels strange, almost uncomfortable. But then the relief comes. That's what being around you felt like for them. You gave them emotional rest. And what's important here is that you did this without trying to be anything. You didn't study how to help. You didn't plan how to heal them. Your natural way of being, your patience, your gentleness, your consistency did the work on its own. That's why it went so deep. Your steadiness reached parts of them they didn't even know were still hurting. Old wounds, old fears, places where they had learned not to trust, not to lean, not to relax. With you, those defenses slowly started to soften. They felt secure, grounded, held. And once someone feels that kind of safety, it changes how they see the world. It changes how they see themselves. Because for the first time, they experience what it's like to be met with calm instead of chaos. That's when healing really begins. Because once someone feels safe, they start to see themselves differently. And that's exactly what happened here. There's a strong shift in how this person views themselves now. And it didn't come from therapy sessions or big realizations all at once. It came from being around you. For a long time, they carried a lot of doubt inside. Quiet doubt. The kind that doesn't always show on the surface, but shapes everything. They questioned themselves constantly, wondered if they were too much or not enough. If something was wrong with them, if they were the reason things didn't work out in the past, and there was a lot of self-blame there. They replayed old moments in their mind, wondering what they could have done differently. They were very hard on themselves. And because of that, they struggled to see their own value. Even when others appreciated them, it didn't always land. And then you came into their life and did something simple, but powerful. You treated them like they mattered. Not in a dramatic way, not with big speeches or constant reassurance, but in the small, everyday ways. The way you listened, the way you didn't judge, the way you stayed present even when they were quiet or unsure. You reflected something back to them that they had forgotten. Through your eyes, they saw patience instead of weakness, depth instead of damage, sensitivity instead of flaws. And slowly that reflection started to sink in. It's like they had been looking at themselves through a cracked mirror for years. Everything looked distorted. And then suddenly they saw themselves through you. Clearly, gently, honestly. And that changed everything. They began to soften toward themselves, to speak more kindly to themselves, to question those old beliefs that told them they weren't enough. They started realizing that maybe they weren't broken at all. Maybe they were just never truly seen before. You didn't force this shift. You didn't try to fix their self-image. You just showed up as yourself, and that was enough to remind them of who they are underneath all the doubt. There's a sense here of remembrance, like something ancient inside them woke up. A quiet knowing that they are worthy, that they are lovable, that they don't have to punish themselves for the past. And once that self-worth started to rebuild, their whole energy changed. The way they carry themselves now is different, more grounded, more confident, more at peace, all because you reflected truth back to them when they couldn't see it on their own. And the important thing here is this: it didn't only change them. This bond wasn't one-sided. It wasn't you giving and them receiving. Something happened to you too through this connection. There's a strong sense that being seen so deeply by them did something inside you. Maybe in ways you didn't even fully realize at first. You're used to being the one who understands others, the one who holds space, the one who listens. But here, you were met in that same place. They saw you, not just the calm surface, not just the supportive side, but the real you, the depth, the sensitivity, the strength you rarely talk about. And being seen like that gave you permission to step into yourself more fully. It's like both of you unlock something in each other. You both grew more confident, not in a loud or showy way, but in a grounded way. A quiet knowing, a feeling of, I don't need to shrink anymore. You both started standing a little taller, speaking a little more honestly, trusting yourselves a little more, and people around you felt that shift. Even if they couldn't explain it, they noticed something was different. The way you carry yourselves, the way you interact, the way your energy fills a room now. There's more presence, more warmth, more certainty. It's that kind of change where people start treating you differently without realizing why. Conversations shift. Respect shows up where it didn't before. You're no longer blending into the background the same way. This bond pulled both of you out of old patterns, old versions of yourselves that were shaped by doubt, by fear, by feeling unseen. Together, you created a space where growth felt safe, where being real felt allowed. There's also a feeling of balance here, like you both gave and received equally. You supported each other through transitions, through moments of uncertainty, through growth that wasn't always comfortable. And that's why this connection feels so strong. It wasn't built on fantasy, it was built on presence, on honesty, on mutual understanding. The energy between you feels different now, more aligned, more confident, more alive. And others can sense that something powerful happened here, even if they don't know the story behind it. And others can sense that something powerful happened here, even if they don't know the story behind it. That's why there's so much attention around you now. It's subtle, but it's there. You may notice people watching you a little longer, listening more closely, asking questions they never asked before. It doesn't feel threatening. It feels curious, almost like admiration mixed with surprise. You didn't suddenly become someone else. You didn't change your personality. What changed is how your energy is showing up. There's more weight to it now, more presence, and people can feel that, even if they can't explain it. For a long time, people only saw one layer of you, the kind side, the gentle side, the supportive side. And while that's true, it's not the whole picture. Now they're starting to realize there's strength underneath that kindness. Boundaries, depth. A calm authority that doesn't need to prove itself. That combination throws people off. Kindness alone is familiar to them. Power alone is familiar to them. But kindness and power together, that's rare. And it makes people pause. Some people are reassessing you, replaying past interactions, realizing that you were more solid, more aware, more grounded than they gave you credit for. They're seeing that you weren't naive, you weren't weak, you were intentional. There's also a sense of respect growing, the kind that isn't loud or dramatic. It shows up in the way people speak to you now, the way they respond to your words, the way they take you more seriously. You might notice that you don't have to explain yourself as much anymore. You don't have to push to be heard. Your presence does the talking. And this attention isn't coming from ego, it's coming from alignment, from you stepping into yourself without force, from being fully you without shrinking or overcompensating. That's why people are talking, not gossiping, noticing. They're realizing that you're not someone to overlook, that you carry something steady and strong, something that influences others quietly but deeply. And whether they say it out loud or not, they feel it. They know there's more to you than they first thought. And this person especially, they think about that a lot. They look back at their life before you, and it almost feels unreal to them now. Not in a sad way, more in a quiet, stunned kind of way. Like standing at the edge of something and realizing how close you were to never stepping onto a completely different path. There's this disbelief that comes through, like, I had no idea that everything was about to shift, no idea that one connection, one presence, one person would change how they see themselves, their life, their future. When they think back, they remember how heavy everything felt back then, how stuck they were, how narrow their world felt. They were surviving, not really living. And at the time, they thought that was just how life was going to be. You were not part of some big plan in their mind. You weren't something they were waiting for. You weren't someone they thought would become important. And that's what makes this hit so deep. You were unexpected. You showed up quietly, naturally, without forcing your way into their story. And yet you became the moment everything started to turn. I keep getting this feeling of a door slowly opening, not slammed open, not forced, just gently pushed, letting light in. And once that light came in, they couldn't unsee it. They couldn't go back to how things were before. They realized now that meeting you happened at the exact moment they were finally ready to change, even if they didn't consciously know it yet. They were already shifting on the inside, questioning things, feeling restless, wanting something different, but not knowing what. And then you appeared. You didn't create the change for them, but you made it possible. You gave them a reference point, a feeling, a lived experience of what life could feel like when it's grounded in safety, understanding, and real connection. That's why you stand out so clearly in their memory. You're the dividing line, the before and after, the moment their story took a different direction. They didn't expect you to be that. But now, looking back, they can see it so clearly. You were the turning point, the quiet one, the one they didn't see coming. And that realization still hits them in waves. Because when someone truly understands the impact you had on their life, it doesn't fade. It doesn't disappear once the moment passes. It stays, it settles into them. And that's what this feels like. Deep gratitude that keeps resurfacing again and again. And this is someone who holds you in their heart in a very real way, not just in memory, but in how they move through life now, in how they treat themselves, in how they show up for others. You became part of their inner world, a reference point, a reminder of what safety, kindness, and real connection feel like. Even if life changes, even if paths separate, even if circumstances look different, you're not erased from their story. There's no sense of replacement here, no sense of forgetting. This is more like an imprint, something that shaped them, something that helped form the person they are becoming. They feel thankful, genuinely thankful, not just for what you did, but for who you are, for the way you showed up without trying to be impressive, for the way you cared without conditions, for the way you made space for them when they didn't know how to make space for themselves. And I keep coming back to this feeling that you might not even realize how deeply you mattered. You may have minimized your role, brushed it off, thought, I didn't do anything special. But from their perspective, you were everything at a moment when everything felt uncertain. That kind of impact doesn't disappear. People are starting to see that now. Not just this person, but others too. They're realizing that you were never small, never insignificant, never just there. You were quiet, and that's different. Quiet doesn't mean weak. Quiet doesn't mean invisible. Quiet means intentional. It means depth. It means strength that doesn't need to announce itself. And as this awareness settles in for them and for you, there's a sense of peace, a calm knowing, like something finally makes sense. You mattered deeply, and that truth isn't going anywhere.